And I was like, well, Dad, it says you and I don't share ancestry within at least the last 4 generations. And I said, well, that means you're not my biological father.
Hello, you are listening to NPE Stories. This is a podcast where NPEs can share their story. I am your host, Lily, and I found out I was an NPE through an ancestry DNA test that changed my life forever. NPE is a term that stands for Not Parent Expected or Non-Paternal Event. This means that one or more of our parents are not who we believe them to be. NPE Stories is a podcast where NPEs can share their story of what their original family was like, how they found out they were an NPE, and what their journey has been like since the day they found out. Welcome to episode 193. Today I am speaking with Terra. Hi, Terra.
Hey, Lily.
Thank you so much for doing this. I know you just went through traffic, and here you are sitting down with me, so thank you for being here.
Yeah, not a problem at all. This is maybe the least stressful part of my day. So.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have a hard job?
No, it's just, it takes a lot of mental energy. Today I was looking through records online, like in Find a Grave and stuff, just trying to understand more about some of the pioneer cemeteries in Iowa. It's a lot of fun and fascinating. It's a lot like doing genealogical work, I feel like, honestly. But I kind of get wired when I do it. It's like unraveling a string of yarn. And so I kind of hyper focus on that sometimes. So I'm kind of on the come down, just starting to relax from that.
Oh my goodness. And you were doing this as part of your job?
Yeah, so I work at a private archaeological firm. And part of it is just doing the research, trying to figure out who might be buried where. When construction companies need to dig somewhere, they need to know if they're going to encounter any unexpected history or prehistory or human remains. And that's kind of where the research aspect of my job comes in.
Oh my goodness. That's fascinating.
It's fun.
It's fun. Wow. All right. So now I know a little bit about what you do. Where are you located?
Right now, I'm in Iowa.
Oh, I'm in Minnesota.
Oh.
So just above you.
Yeah, the weather's not great right now. But.
No, it's not. Soon, right? I'm on spring break with my kids. So we're hoping it will actually feel like spring soon. Okay, Terra. So let's find out about your childhood. Tell me about your family of origin, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So I grew up in South Texas, in an area of South Texas called the Rio Grande Valley. And it's this nice sort of subtropical area in Texas. I really loved it. When you get close to the Mexican-American border, you've got a lot of great food and a lot of great culture and everything like that. So that's where I grew up. My mom and dad got married out of high school. They're both from Michigan and moved down to South Texas when they were, I don't know, I want to say probably in their early 20s. And I was born, I think when they were around 25, 26. And so I was born in South Texas. My mom and dad divorced when I was 2. I grew up with my dad. I didn't think anything of it. I know now as I'm older, people wonder why I didn't grow up with my mom. But, that was just the way I grew up. And so I never knew any different. And that was just the way life was. I loved my dad. I loved my mom. I saw my mom on alternating holidays and spent good chunks of time with her in the summer. And my dad was a great guy. He was a single father raising me. He tried his best, as, anyone can ask for. Growing up in South Texas, I always looked kind of, a little Caucasian girl. My skin's very fair. My eyes are kind of, I don't know, small. So I'd always have kids asking me if I was Asian or something. And I really liked Asian culture. And so I would just kind of go along with it. As when you're a little kid, you kind of like to be different or go along with whatever people are asking you. And so I was just like, yeah, I'm Asian. I'm whatever. I didn't feel like I really looked like anyone, but I don't know. I really didn't think anything of it. I was a kid and I had a loving family. So I loved the Mexican American culture down south. It always felt near and dear to my heart. My dad and my mom both got remarried when I was in middle school, or that transition from middle school to high school. It wasn't a really hard transition. I feel like I was a pretty easygoing kid.
Did you have any siblings growing up?
No, no. So I don't have any siblings. I feel like that's a hard question. When you always ask an NPE, it's like
Yes.
I have a half brother, right? I call him my half brother. So I have a half brother on my dad's side. He was born when I was in college. So there's about a 20-year difference between us. As the story goes, he's not technically my half brother. Uh,
Okay.
but my mom and my biological father don't have any other biological children. So in that way, I'm an only child.
I am curious. I know everyone asks you this, why your dad raised you, because it is a little out of the ordinary.
Yeah. I never really questioned it when I was younger. And I kind of, I don't want to say I didn't care to know the answer or anything, but as I've grown older, I guess I kind of understand my adults a bit better in the sense, and feel like I understood my mom um, as I was growing up, in the sense that, like, I could never see myself with kids. I'm not really a kids kind of person.
Hmm.
Very independent, and I like doing things, and I get bored easily, and I can definitely see that in my mom. So I just always assumed that it was because my mom is a very independent person who likes to do a whole bunch of stuff. Kids don't really fit into her lifestyle. And I never blamed her for that or anything. I felt like I understood it on a deeply personal level. So I never had any bitterness towards her or animosity for that, or thought it was different. But throughout, as the story goes, I guess I just found out probably within the last couple of months from my dad that I guess when I was around two, around their divorce or whatever, my mom showed up with me at the apartment complex that my dad and my aunt were living at. So they lived kind of in adjoining apartments, my aunt and my dad. And so my mom showed up with me. So I guess I was living with her at that time. But she showed up with me and kind of just let them know that she was going to be leaving. She was going to be moving to Central Texas, and she wasn't taking me with her.
Mm.
So my dad and my aunt really sheltered me from all of that. It was always my dad's kind of opinion that until I'm an adult, like the drama between him and my mom is not my drama. I don't need to know it, as far as I am concerned, that they're parents who work together. They're just not married, and they don't care for each other, but that doesn't mean they both don't love me. So
Mm.
that's kind of all I really knew about that.
Mm. How did you find out you were an NPE?
I guess a lot of people in the United States, you get that kind of family lore of, oh, we've got Native American blood on our side or whatever. We descend from so and so tribe. And that's kind of how it was with my mom's side of the family. She's got kind of the slanty eyes like I do, and high cheekbones, and she tans pretty easily, and I tan really easily. Even though my skin's pretty fair, I don't often burn. And so she always told me that her dad was Native American. maybe like half or whatever. But my mom doesn't like talking about her family. And it's really hard getting information about anything from her that isn't in the narrative that she wants you to know. So I would ask her, and she'd be like, "Oh, well, I don't know. I'll figure it out. I don't know what tribe my dad's from, being her dad. Maybe I'll ask around or whatever." After years of kind of getting that information and not really getting anywhere with my mom, I decided, well, I'm an adult. I can figure it out. I have the power. I have the internet. That was around, I guess, 2014 when 23andMe started becoming a big thing. And I think it was for Christmas I asked for 23andMe. And so I was like, okay, well, I can at least figure out how much Native American I am. And that can help me figure out, sort of how many generations back we might have Native American, to at least determine how much of a percentage my mom's dad was. And I call him my mom's dad because I never really knew him. He was in prison most of my life. So, I didn't really have that calling him grandpa mentality. So, and that's also why, like, I couldn't just go to him or talk to him about it. So, and my mom's mom was not, I didn't see her that often. I think maybe I've seen her like 3 times in my life. I asked for 23andMe from my dad and my stepmom for Christmas. After completing that and getting the results back, lo and behold, I'm 15% Native American. And so I was like, hey, that's more than I expected to be. Cool. Guess mom was right. This doesn't narrow it down for me, like to what part of the United States, at least not back then. Now it does. So I just kind of went with it and I was like, well, I'll figure out the rest later. I remember matching with a few people from Texas, but I was born in Texas and I didn't really think about it, because if I had thought about it, I would have known that that's weird because my mom and my dad aren't from Texas. But back then I didn't think about it. And I was like, oh, cool. Didn't look at the names of anyone I matched with or anything. And yeah, so took the 23andMe. None of the rest of my family had taken it back then. So I just kind of let that lie and didn't really think about genealogy or genetics on my end for a long time after that. I got busy with school and grad school, and that takes up a lot of time and mental energy. And then a year and a half ago, I was working at a job where I just had a lot of time on my hands during the day, and I was behind a computer. So, family lore on my dad's side was that we're related to Shirley Temple on his side. Spoiler alert, turns out they're not related to Shirley Temple. But yeah, so I couldn't find a link. And then I remembered the Native American that I had on my mom's side and how I wasn't getting anywhere with asking her questions. Because my mom and dad are very different people. My mom's very, very conservative. My dad is independent, but leans way more liberal. And so I thought, well, there's no way I'm going to get my mom to take a DNA test. That's just out of the question. But I bet I could convince my dad to take a DNA test. Like, him and my stepmom are they're health nuts. And so I thought, well, I can use that to my advantage. In 2020, I decided to get my dad and my stepmom both 23andMe because they've got health reports as well as the ancestry. I sold it to them as, like, you guys can get all the health information you need and some of this ancestry stuff, because supposedly my stepmom had Native American ancestry. And so we can figure that all out. Won't that be so cool? And they were going to come up to visit for Thanksgiving. So I thought, well, that's just the right amount of time. I'll give them their Christmas presents on Thanksgiving when they come to visit, they'll send it out right after, and we'll have the results by around Christmas. And we're going to get together again for Christmas so I can help them understand the results. It'll be great. And then I can sort of suss out the ancestry on my side because my dad's account and my account will be linked. I can figure out what exactly comes from him. I can figure out what exactly comes from my mom. And then that can help me better focus my genealogical research. So I did that. They came up to visit. They were excited about the 23andMe, as everyone is when they first get it. On my dad's side, his mom died of breast cancer when she was, I believe she was like, at the time I thought she was 34 when she died of breast cancer, but I think that's when she was diagnosed with it. And I'm pretty sure she died around like her late 30s of breast cancer. So that was also a concern of mine. This was before I thought about getting my dad and my stepmom their 23andMe, but I just turned 36. So I was very concerned like with figuring out if I had the genes for breast cancer. I know that's not the only predictor of getting breast cancer, but it's certainly a big one. And you can't get a mammogram until you're 40, which is incredibly frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a heart issue when I was 33. It was the end of my 33rd year. So I guess this would have been the end of 2021. I developed atrial fibrillation for whatever reason and had to undergo a cardiac ablation at the beginning of 2022, like in January. So while that sucks and is a lot to go through, it means that I met my out-of-pocket max and deductible for my health insurance in January.
Mm.
So I could get all of the healthcare I wanted for the rest of the year, which is exactly what I did. I figured out what I was allergic to. I'm allergic to grass, which is not fun. I went to the doctor when I actually needed to because everything was covered. And then I figured, well, I'm going to be 34 soon. So that's the age that my grandmother died or was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I'm almost 34. I need to get a mammogram. I need to figure this out. So I went to the doctor. My primary care doctor was like, yeah, I agree. That's very concerning. We need to get you tested. Radiology kicked back every time. I think it was 3 or 4 times with, she's too young. We're not going to do a mammogram. Like, which is just ridiculous to me because if it's in your family history, like what? I'm just going to wait till I'm 39 and breast cancer's progressed too far and nothing can be done just because you didn't want to give me a mammogram when I was 33 or 34.
Mm-hmm.
That blows my mind. But so I had to go back to my primary care doctor and let him know that radiology kicked it back. And my primary care doctor and radiology kind of argued back and forth about it for a couple months. Then I went to my annual gynecological appointment. She thought it was ridiculous that radiology wasn't giving me the mammogram. So she also got mad at radiology and they kicked back and they were like, well, fine, but she has to get genetic testing first. So I got tested for the breast cancer genes, didn't have them, thankfully. But because of my family history with it, I started getting followed by the breast clinic here, and which was great because they'll push anything, like any imaging that you need to get done through. So they were finally able to convince radiology to give me, I think I started with an MRI and then got the mammogram later. But either way, I got the imaging done. They found a lump and recommended that I get a biopsy. So I get the biopsy in 2023, early 2023, and I don't do well with needles. Like I developed a phobia of needles and I've been working my way from that to get used to them again. Like I don't faint anymore, thankfully, but it's still hard. So getting the breast biopsy, in addition to just being a difficult thing in general, felt extra difficult for me because it's a huge needle. It's a huge needle in your boob, um, and you're awake for it. But I did the thing. It was benign, which is great. So that was all within that same year. And I figured, well, I've had my dad's mom died of breast cancer. My dad's dad died of a heart attack. They both died before I turned 3, so I didn't really know them that well. So I'm in South Texas, and my stepmom's results come in on Christmas Eve. And so we're all super excited. I know my dad's have got to come in soon. So this is great. We're all going to be together like I expected when the results were going to come in. And so my stepmom's come in. She's like 99.7%. I don't even know, some Northwestern European, blonde haired, blue eyed people. So no Native American in her genes, which disappointed her, but also she got to find out a lot more information that she didn't know about. So that was fun going through it with her and seeing what last names of people she matched with were and how she might know them and things like that. And my dad's results still hadn't come in. He kept showing me, like, look, it's still processing. And I just thought, ridiculous. Like, I really wanted to, like, of course, I wanted both my dad's and my stepmom's results because it's fascinating to me no matter what. But I really wanted to be able to go through my dad's when I was with him because my aunt was there too. And between the two of them, they'd be able to remember maybe more family lore spurred by these genetic revelations or whatever. And, but my dad's results didn't come in before I left back for Iowa. So, I was really disappointed in that. But looking back, can you imagine if I'd found that out on Christmas? Like, that would have been horrible. That would have been the Christmas from hell. um, so anyway, I go back to Iowa. My boyfriend and I, we love hosting parties and stuff and events at our place. So December 29th, 2022, we're hosting a Christmas party at our place. This is maybe only like 2 days after I got back from Texas visiting family. And so we're getting the house together. It's a Friday night. We're getting the house together. The house is all cleaned. We've decorated. I'm now getting ready, putting on my makeup and my clothes. My boyfriend, Rich, is cleaning the rest of the house, making sure everything's in order. Friends are going to be coming over in an hour and a half. And my dad texts me. He says, "Hey, the results are in," like with an exclamation point or something, because he knows I was waiting. Like, I asked him every day, every half day when the results were coming in. So he texts me as soon as they come in. And I get excited. I open it up immediately and I click on his name. And the first thing when I scrolled down at least on his profile was you and his name don't have any ancestors in common in the last 4 generations. I think it words it something like that. And I just stopped and was thinking, well, that only means one thing. I've worked with DNA before. That only means one thing. So I text my dad back and I'm like, "Hey, are you sure? Did you look at the results?" And he texts me back like, "Yeah, I mean, I skimmed them." And I text him again, like, "But did you really look at the results? I don't know that we're seeing the same thing." I was thinking, like, if he hasn't called me, he hasn't seen this. And so I call him and I'm like, "Hey, Dad, have you looked at the results?" And I think he's eating dinner or something. He's like, "Oh yeah, I skimmed them. It was really interesting, like the German ancestry and all that, huh?" And I'm just like, "Dad, you're not my biological father." And I don't remember exactly how he said it. I think he was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I was like, "Well, Dad, it says you and I don't share ancestry within at least the last 4 generations." And I said, "Well, that means you're not my biological father." And it seemed so nonchalant when he said this next part, but it just, it's the way I think that he processes things and the way I process things are very different. And so he just says, "Well, I can tell you who it is." And he just didn't sound surprised. And so I was like, "Okay." Well, he says it's probably Nick Garza. And I am like, "Okay, cool." What's going on here? And so I don't remember if he tells me that day exactly, but he was like, "Oh, well, your mom and I separated when before, like a little bit before you were born. We were separated. Your mom was seeing this guy and we got back together or something, and then you were born." Yeah, I don't remember exactly how it came out, something like that. And I was like, "Okay, well, I've got to get ready for this party. It's too late to cancel now." Mm. So I share with Rich what the conversation I just had with my dad. Like, I had shown him the screen that showed my dad and I weren't related in the last, at least the last 4 generations. But Rich, I don't think really processed it until I told him what I had just found out. And so it just kind of seemed like a blur. Like, I wasn't really upset, or I guess I just wasn't processing at that time because it's just such a shock. And I had to be a host. So we were, I had my party, kind of blurted it out at the party because if I'm not a good host in my head, people should know why. But I guess I probably didn't have to really just trauma dump like that, but I did. Um, and everyone was really understanding. The party went on. It was fine. And then I went to work the next day, and my dad texts me saying, "Actually, I think I spoke too soon. It could also be this guy, Hector Garcia." And so I'm thinking, okay, haven't processed yet at this point, mind you, what this means for my ethnicity. At that point, I'm just trying to figure out who my biological father is. So I look up these 2 guys and find out about a lot about this Hector Garcia guy. He's a singer. He seems super cool. I like singing, by the way. I love singing karaoke. I've always wanted to be a singer. And I'm just like, wow, like maybe this is my biological father. Maybe that's where I get my singing from. And I have knobby knees, kind of like he does. Maybe his knees are my knees. And I feel like I see some similarities. He's got the slanty eyes like I do and high cheekbones. He's got the knobby knees. He sings. So that's the information I find out about Hector. And then I decide to look up Nick. And I mean, if like Hector Garcia and Nick Garza, those are 2 very, very common names in South Texas. I was able to find Hector because my dad remembered the name of the band that Hector was in around the time that my mom was seeing him. But Nick didn't have that much information. So when I was trying to find Nick, of course, obituaries came up, and that freaked me out because what if he was dead already? I hadn't really thought about that. So that scared me. What if I figured out who this guy was, and if he was my biological father, what if I would never have the opportunity to meet him or to know what he sounds like? And I know a bunch of NPEs go through that, and my heart is with them because I just can't even, I don't know, I can't even comprehend that. In some cases, I'm sure it's better though than the alternative, but for me, it freaked me out at that time. And sort of spurred my interest in figuring out who it who my biological father was as soon as possible. You know, I worked in the death industry for a while before, and it gave me this sort of spurred sense of you never know when you're going to die. You could have all these plans, but you never really know. And I'm kind of a control freak, I guess, and I need to know all the things. So I felt like I had a limited amount of time to figure out who my biological father was. Every day not looking for him was a day that he could die. Figured out that obituary was not the Nick Garza that my dad was thinking about. But I did find him, and it was really difficult to find any information about him at all. But then my stepmom, of all people, was like, hey, I know Nick. He used to date my sister. Why don't I just try to contact him for you since he knows me? And we can go from there. And if it's not him, then we can contact Hector. And I'm like, oh, that sounds great. Like, then I don't have to cold call or cold email someone and them think it's spam and just delete it automatically. Well, she tries contacting him just to be like, hey, how's it going? So she's also not cold calling him out of nowhere. And I'm kind of thinking at this point, okay, I need a plan. If I need to figure out who my biological father is before my mom finds out that I know that my dad's not my biological father. Because if my mom finds out that I know, she'll know who my biological father is and head me off contacting him first and then spin some story so that he won't talk to me. Because my mom is very manipulative. So that also kind of makes me feel like I need to hurry. So throughout all this, I never confronted my mom because I knew that she would try to take control of the situation in whatever way that she could, even if that meant that I don't get to know my biological father. So my stepmom contacts Nick and is like, hey, how's it going? You free for a phone call? I think she contacts him over Facebook or something. He's like, I guess. Okay. Because she also hasn't talked to him in like 20 years, or I guess at this point, 30 years. I don't even know. And so she's essentially trapped him and tells him over the phone. And I had written a letter for her to give to him. In an ideal scenario, I wanted her to talk to him in person so he could read this letter that I wrote him at his own leisure, not feel rushed or put in a corner by this information. But that wasn't going to work out. He was really suspicious when my stepmom was contacting him. So she's like, hey, so this is coming out of nowhere, but do you remember? She says my mom's name and she says my dad's name. And he's like, yeah. And so she's like, well, we think Terra's your daughter. And she goes through the whole process of how we found out and how I'm looking at a lot of the names of my 23andMe matches. And I'm like, well, there are more Garzas in my matches than there are I think I called Hector. It's not Hector Garcia. No, it's not Hector Garcia. His last name's Guzman. Sorry, Hector Guzman. And so I was like, well, there's a lot more Garzas than there are Guzmans in my matches. So it's most likely Nick and not Hector. And so, anyone who's getting this information the first time is going to be like, yeah, okay, but how do you really know? So my stepmom goes through with it, trying to explain everything. And then the next day, Nick calls my stepmom back and he's like, okay, can you explain this to me again, why you think that Tara's my daughter? And so my stepmom does. And she's like, look, let me send you this picture of her because I think she looks kind of like you. So she sends Nick a picture of me. And I look so much like Nick's sister, who died of breast cancer when she was, I think, like 40. So all I have to see is Nick's sister's obituary picture. And at a certain angle, she looks just like me. There are differences in face shape, but her eyes look similar to mine. Her, like, just different aspects of her look so similar to me. And so Nick's like, yeah, I guess I can see that. And so he agrees to give my stepmom his email address so that I can contact him. Him and I didn't exchange phone numbers till like a year after learning about each other. But so Nick and I exchanged some emails. I try to be as distant as possible because I don't know for sure if he's my biological father yet. And so I, send him an email to him like, this is what I know. Let me know if you have any questions. If you want to see my 23andMe results, I'm happy to share those with you. Just let me know what you need. And then I also tell him, like, I would like to take a paternity test if you're willing to. And he seems kind of hesitant at this time. He's like, well, I don't know. I think we're jumping the gun here. Like, let's just slow our roll. And I get back to him and I'm like, really though, like, I just want to find out if it's you or if it's someone else so I can continue my search. Like, if it's not you, that's fine. We don't have to talk again, whatever, but I need to find out so that I can be on my way if that's the case. So he agrees to the paternity test. And I think this is in February or whatever. I found a reputable company and sent him his test. I took mine. We both sent it in. And the results come on my birthday. It's the first thing I see in the morning on my birthday that Nick is my biological father. And actually, the first thing I saw was a message from him saying like, hey, did you see the results yet? Certainly a pleasant surprise on my end. And then I'm like, what's a pleasant surprise? That we're not related or that we are related? And that's when I looked at the results and was like, oh, we are. Okay, he's my biological father. And I'm like, okay, so that's a pleasant surprise to him. That's good, I guess. He's not going to reject me, at least not right now. Then we go back and forth from there. He's not very responsive. So he takes like 2.5 weeks to respond to every email that I send. But you know what? I'm not a quick responder either. I often take a while to respond to people. So I'm just going to say that I get that from him. But it was kind of frustrating at first because I wanted to be really close to him. I've always had this craving for close family, even though, on my dad's side, we're great. But at this point, I realized like the Native American that I have in my ancestry, that's because I'm half Mexican. I'm 15% Native American and I'm whatever rest percent Spanish because I'm Mexican. And that blew my mind. I always felt othered growing up in South Texas because of my light skin. And I was, made fun of for not knowing Spanish fluently down there. And for that to actually be in my ancestry was just this sort of weird validation of me loving the culture and the food and it feeling like home. It feels more like home than Midwest culture. But I just always chalk that up to, well, that's where I grew up. That's what I know. But I am Mexican American. I just am not, I don't look like the preconceived idea of what a Mexican American individual looks like. And so it's weird. It's, like I said, validating, but also just weird. Like, I don't know. I'm not who I thought I was. My boyfriend, for example, Rich, he's also half Mexican American, and whenever we go to, he looks like, I guess he's something other than Caucasian or white American. So whenever we go to like Mexican restaurants or whatever, they'll always speak to him in Spanish, and I know a little bit more Spanish than him. I used to know a lot when I was younger. But anyway, at first I was like, ha, I'm more Mexican than, or I'm as Mexican as you are, and I know more Spanish than you. But no one ever speaks to me in Spanish automatically because I don't look Mexican American. And so I don't fit in anywhere really, is what it feels like. I'm not recognized really as Mexican American by others, and I'm not fully what I thought I was either. I'm not on my dad's side. They're kind of the Romani and German, and I'm not any of that. So I thought, I was like, well, if I can get to know Nick better and learn more about him and how he grew up, then I can feel more connected to the culture. Um, but it was just like pulling teeth, getting information from him. Not like that he wouldn't respond. His responses were very thoughtful and long, and I really appreciated that as we got to know each other. But it was just, there's a lot to learn about yourself and your biological father when you make this discovery, and it takes a lot of time, and I feel like you never really know everything. And anyway, I met him for the first time right before Christmas, right when I got to Texas to visit for the holidays this past year.
How was that?
It was interesting. He finally gave his phone number to me so that we could text just in case, we didn't recognize each other or whatever. It was kind of a weird scenario, I felt like. So since I'm coming from the Midwest, I fly down to Texas. So I didn't have a car. So my dad and my stepmom had to drop me off to visit my bio dad, which I felt bad for my dad about. But, they seemed more than willing to. So Nick and I were going to meet for lunch. So I stressed, well, what do you wear when you meet your biological father for the first time? Like, I don't want to be too dressed down. I don't want to be too dressed up. I want to look good, but I don't want to look like good. I want to look like me. But what even is that? You just come into like all of this. How do you best represent yourself in a singular meeting of someone so integral to your existence? It's almost like, I felt like it was almost like meeting a famous person for the first time, like if you were to meet someone famous, well, I have to dress right. I have to make sure my hair looks good. When we eat, I need to make sure that I don't look embarrassing when I eat. So I need to choose something that's in small pieces, like a salad. A salad's safe. Everything's in small pieces. It's not messy. And then I was like, well, am I even going to recognize him? He sent me 2 pictures of him, I think, and they were from years ago. So what if I don't recognize him? Is he going to recognize me? He only knows me from a couple of pictures that are from Facebook, which are obviously going to be the best pictures that I choose because they're my profile pictures. They're not what I look like on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, it was just really nerve-wracking, but we met up, and I was worried if I should shake his hand or if we should hug or what, but he recognized me. He was already there. He recognized me. He gave me a hug. We went and had lunch, and he started grilling me with questions like nonstop in a nice way, but I wasn't expecting him to be so talkative, and which is good because I can be awkward in person. But yeah, it was really nice. It was good meeting him. We still sort of had the same amount of contact as we did before we met. He's only got one living, his brother's the only one that's living. And he's a political figure. And he has one niece, so his sister's daughter, who are alive because his mom, Nick's mom, died of ovarian cancer when she was really young. So actually, they carry the breast cancer gene in their family. So the whole reason why I told all of that about the breast biopsy was, one, because why would my mom let me go through with that testing if that's not even in my medical history? Turns out it was anyway. But I don't carry that gene. It turns out Nick is the only one in his family who doesn't carry that gene. So yeah, I was lucky.
Did Nick have any other children?
No, nope.
So he just found out like over a year ago that he has child, his only child.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that he said, though, when we were at lunch was like, I always wondered if I had a kid out there, which just makes me think, how irresponsible were you? But yeah, I haven't been rejected. I know that for some people, rejection comes later, so I'm not letting my guard down too much. Yeah, it's interesting and weird. I feel bad for my dad that he went through all of this. Like, I don't blame my mom for her decisions. What I figured out, I finally confronted my mom about that. Of course, she denied it, as most of NPE moms do. And then she got mad at me for finding out because my dad's such a great person. He shouldn't have to go through that. Like, whatever. Whatever, mom. I think she yelled at me for a long time before. Or first was like, well, I don't believe DNA. And I've worked in DNA. So that's what I told her. I was like, okay, well, you can just not believe it, but I've worked in it and that doesn't change my mind. I know how DNA works. And we got into a huge fight to the point where she was just like, well, we're never talking about this again. And we haven't, which sucks. But at least Nick is very forthcoming about information about the family and what he knows about him and my mom getting together.
That's always so hard when to continue a relationship with your mom, you have to just sweep things under the rug. You are not alone in that. A lot of NPEs just aren't allowed to talk about it with their moms or with their parents.
Yeah. Like, how ridiculous is that they can't confront their own mistakes or shame? And we have to be the ones to find out and then deal with their feelings as well as ours, and then our dad's feelings and our biological father's feelings. Like, yeah, I feel bad for my dad that my mom did all that. And so I guess where I was going with this is that with the timeline, the way I figured it was that she and my dad were separated. She was seeing Nick. She got pregnant, realized she got pregnant, realized it wasn't my dad's, came back to my dad because they had a reunion of sorts. She always told me, she was like, I know the day you were conceived or whatever. Well, yeah, okay, because you made sure that happened so that there was an excuse to say that, I'm pregnant and it's your child, husband, when, that's not the case. And then left me with my dad when I was 2. Like I said, when you're young, I don't blame her for that. I don't want kids. If I'd have gotten pregnant, you make all sorts of mistakes when you're young. I'm upset with her for the way she dealt with it now and the way that she dealt with it with me. Figuring out your ethnicity is different and what you thought it was is a total mind fuck. But I guess it gets better with time. Still working on that.
I know that, and that's what it is. There's no like quick fix for this, but it does appear to be time related as it goes on.
Yeah.
And Terra, if people wanted to contact you, they have permission to email me, npestories@gmail.com, and I will send anything along to Terra. Just make sure and reference episode 193, Terra's story. Terra, thank you so much for going through this. Quite a significant ethnicity change for you. And thank you so much for sharing your story today.
Yeah, not a problem, Lily. I'm happy to talk to anyone who has questions or just wants to talk. And I appreciate you for letting us all tell our stories.
These stories are here for us to identify with. If you are an NPE and would like to share your story, email npestories@gmail.com. You do not have to give any identifying information. If you are an NPE and would like to share your story, I'd like to hear from you. Subscribe to this podcast to hear more. Come heal with us.